James Fox, the renowned UAP documentarian, has been a source of some great information when it comes to this topic, whether it's a phenomenon, the one I actually spoke about yesterday with Moment of Contact, which is my favorite UAP documentary. He is out there right now, and he's making a plea, saying something big is coming, and he's got something he wants to talk about. Question I have is the Varginha bodies part of this? Because Leslie Kane also, which we'll show the video in a little bit, says that there might be some evidence shown from that case soon. Is it all related? We know that James Fox and Leslie Kane are pretty tight. So let's read this tweet on X first, what James says. Check this out. Now, he kind of open call. It says, I'm calling on all of you out there to help spread this event far and wide. Pretty please. This is the biggest grassroots effort in the history of my career. Please help spread this far and wide. Oh, and check out Chris Ramsey 52, the latest podcast. James Fox, the phenomenon, Moment of Contact, hosts UAP press conference in Washington, D.C. with witnesses, experts, and members of Congress at the National Press Club, January 20th, 2026. 11 to 1 Brazilian first-hand witnesses of a crashed UFO and live non-human beings. 2 to 3 American insiders on crash retrievals. Biologics call for immunity for whistleblowers. Part 1 will be Brazil for the first time ever. A leading Brazilian neurosurgeon is revealing details of his direct contact in a hospital with a live non-human intelligent being in 1996. He and other Brazilian witnesses will be at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. on January 20th, 2026 for a press conference. The quote, "The truth is, I saw the being. It was not from our planet," says Dr. Italo Venturilli, the neurosurgeon who was bedside with the entity at Regional Hospital in Varginha. "We are talking about something that changes the concept of humanity. It's important for people to know." In January 96, in Varginha, Brazil, numerous witnesses reported a cigar-shaped object in distress, which ultimately crashed in a field outside the city. Several days later, on January 20th, 3 girls, ages 14, 16, 22, came with a few steps of an otherworldly creature cowering in broad daylight against a wall in a vacant lot. Over time, it was revealed that the Brazilian Fire Department and military police captured 2 non-human beings on that same day. According to multiple Brazilian government officials, the crashed debris and non-human beings, likely one still living, were flown out of Brazil within days by the U.S. Air Force and presumably remain in the possession of a secret U.S. classified research program. He follows that up, saying he'll post the rest of the press release as soon as he can figure out how to get all the pages. It'll happen later today, but just know there's a big event on January 20th at 11 a.m. So this is pretty big in general, right? You're going to have this doctor who's going to be out there and talking about these things that he did, that he saw, more so on the record, it looks like. And, you know, the idea, look, I still think it is one of the most compelling documentaries that I've seen. If you haven't seen Moment of Contact, I really suggest that you do. Now, this is going to be very similar, I think, of, as I mentioned yesterday, if you watched yesterday's video when I talked about Neil deGrasse Tyson. One of the things that he said that unfortunately is what we're working against here, if you believe in a lot of this stuff, is that he says something along the lines of witnesses and people saying things aren't enough. And just people talking about things and saying what they saw isn't enough. I don't know if that's untrue. I think that it, in a certain aspect, I think it is untrue, because the more awareness and the more people start to go, well, wait a minute. Enough of these people are saying these things, and this doctor, like, what he should be vetted, looked into. There was the clip that they showed, and I showed it on this video, on this channel, I think last week, when James Fox was prepping this, and the guy who was talking about being at bedside with this entity, and he had a lot of his colleagues with him. And James Fox pretty much asked, like, do you think that this is someone who would lie and make things up? And they were like, absolutely not. He's just not that type of person. Now, you know, it's his friend, this is their friend. But I always feel like lie detector tests and all those things should be a given. And I think that naturally this guy would probably take one if he was going to, put his career and everything else on the line by doing this and speaking to people. And the reason that they're also able to do stuff like this now is because the topic is being taken so much more serious. One of my biggest complaints forever, especially if you've been watching this channel long enough, is the mainstream coverage has been somewhat non-existent. That's starting to change a bit. It's slow, but it's starting to change. Even if you look at the coverage that Fox News just gave, or I think it was Fox who just gave to David Grush, and then Luna was on there talking about the topic as well. There's more and more conversation about it. Bill Maher is covering it a lot more. News Nation continues to cover it. So there are more and more outlets that are starting to cover it more and more serious, and I think that's the reason, because of the allies that a lot of these people have now, right? I don't know if James Fox had this kind of congressional access in the way that he does now. He probably had some, but now there's more of a concerted effort to really push forward the topic, at least for a lot of people, whether it is Luna, Garcia, Burleson, Moskowitz, whoever. There's a lot of people out there that you could approach in this situation and say, hey, I've done this stuff. This guy's willing to come in and talk. Do you want to hear from him? Do you want to hear about some of the information? Because as he said in the documentary, it's there too, but there are people who spoke about U.S. officials coming in and taking all of the remains that were there. And if the U.S. was heavily involved, how involved? What do these people know who were there, who saw this? So Leslie Kean also discussed this on a podcast. Let me make sure I have the right podcast, and I want to give the guy some credit. Well, the tweet is from Astral. It looks like at wow 3693525. I guess they don't really have the credit for it, so forgive me on where this comes from. But the Astral is where the clip is from, and then maybe I looked for the link to the podcast, and he didn't have it there. So let's play the clip, and then we'll talk about it.
Rush and others have always made the connection between what we call biologics and crash retrievals. But what's interesting to me about the James Fox movie is it's something concrete that makes that connection, right? Mm-hmm. It's documented. It's not classified. It's a case in which there was a crash, and then there were live beings that were well documented, that were captured by the military, that were taken to hospitals, and eventually were taken away by the United States.
Yeah.
So it's an extremely well-documented case. So I just love the fact that we may get, more attention on the sort of biologic side of this as a result of his film.
Yeah.
And other efforts that are going to be taking place around that, which we'll see over the next few weeks. And just to say that I think what's important about the biologics is the argument can be made that release of information about the biologics is not a national security concern. These are studies that have been done on tissue or whatever, or bodies, mm-hmm. right? You can't argue the way you can argue with technology that it affects national security. Obviously, we don't want the Russians and Chinese to understand the technology that we've reverse engineered or created, right?
Yeah, exactly. It could be weaponized or whatever.
Different. This is just a body that exists of a non-human being, and it is absolutely proof that we're not alone. And it's proof that is not a threat to national security.
Exactly. It's like the nut of the question, really. I mean, that's like sort of like, in terms of, are we alone or are we not? I think that it goes right to the heart of it.
And the argument can be made in petitioning the government for, and once we can get it to a credible level, the biologics, mm-hmm. One can make the argument that this should be revealed because the normal argument that's used, which is national security, doesn't apply here. So what is going to be the argument for withholding that information? And what I love about the Varginha case that James has documented is it's sort of a springboard into that level of inquiry, because it's mm-hmm. it's a documented case of live living beings that, so, it takes it into that world, to me, as I see it, in a very credible way. And it might allow us to ask new kinds of questions regarding the release of biological information if we can't release technological information.
Yeah.
So I'm very fascinated by that as being sort of a possible unfolding narrative that'll happen over the next year. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm very interested in that. And there is going to be some interesting developments that will occur around that case over the next year. So,
okay. So Varginha, creeping back in there, man. Like I said, it is to me, the most powerful documentary I've seen on this subject so far. It's a very well-made film by a very well-made director, but I think there's a lot in there that you can ask and say, hey, if this is all pretty accurate, like, what the hell is going on? And more questions should be asked. And it seems like that's the case. And it seems like it was compelling enough to get people on board to try to find that out. And Leslie Kean herself, the way that she presented, I thought was very well said. And the national security side of technology makes a lot of sense. But if you can actually prove that there was these biologics out there, and there are doctors and other people who can prove, maybe they can't prove, but if you can prove that they had these bodies and there are other people saying these things, then why shouldn't this be the case that cracks it open and says, well, this actually happened. This actually happened. Now, I do unfortunately think it's going to take more than one doctor or two doctors to say what they saw. You're going to have to get more. You're going to, in the way that you really started to push forward in 2023 at that hearing, when Grush and two pilots sat next to each other, people started to listen. People said, oh, there's a little bit more there. If all three of these guys are saying it. Now, there's supposed to be more apparently, but the more the people start coming out and talking, especially with this particular case, if they could get more of these people who were involved to talk, to discuss, and there were bigger things, then maybe Leslie Kean is right. Maybe this thing really starts to be the thing that pops off more conversation than even beforehand, because it's a lot bigger than just the case itself, right? Because if you look at what David Grush said at that 2023 hearing, and he was asked about it by Megyn Kelly recently, about the fact that the government does have bodies of biologics. They have these things. Is one of those bodies and one of those things from the Varginha case? How many other retrievals have there been? Is this cigar-shaped thing that they got from Varginha, is that one of the things that has been discussed by Lakatsky and other people? How much of it ties into a lot of the other things about the reverse engineering program and those other things? Does it all kind of tie in together? I think the answer would probably be yes if it turns out it's all true. But what I would recommend, if you haven't seen Moment of Contact and you're into this topic, I would highly recommend that. That's why I mentioned yesterday. I would tell people right now that if you're going to watch either that or Age of Disclosure, to me, I'm saying Moment of Contact. Now, I know it's a harder sell for most of the, not for, if you're into this topic and you believe already, or you at least have, heavy thoughts about other life and potential things being here and all that other stuff, then you should watch it. I think it is a harder sell, obviously, for somebody who's whether a pure skeptic, not paying attention to it whatsoever. I think that when you get a movie like Age of Disclosure, or even the one that got me into this with, what was it, UFOs investigating the unknown, those are good icebreakers to get people to ask questions about, because then they see their lawmakers and other people talking about it, and they go, wait, what the hell is this? And because that Moment of Contact was not the first movie I watched. I got interested in the topic through that documentary, and then my friend Attack Peter, who's been on this channel many times, recommended both The Phenomenon and Moment of Contact. And I was fascinated by the case in Moment of Contact. Phenomenon was good too, but that one to me was the one that really stood out and kind of moved me. There's one particular scene where this guy that was interviewed on the news when it first crashed, I think it was like 96, 97, I can't remember, but they show footage of him when he was younger and he did the interview. And then they find this guy again years later, and his story hasn't changed at all, but they take him to the field where it crashed, and out of nowhere, he like realizes where it was because he couldn't remember at first. And then he realizes and he runs and he just like breaks down and starts crying, like a real like human moment. Now, the guy might have been a phenomenal actor. Didn't seem like it, but it just seemed very real to me. So even when this interview with this doctor that James Fox talked to, and this emotional kind of wave that hits him when he's talking about it, seems like this event, whatever happened during that time, really had an impact on all these people in Virginia. So January 20th, is it going to be something that actually moves the needle, or is it going to be another one of these hyped up events that ultimately don't go anywhere? I'm hoping it's the former. I'm hoping it's something that kind of moves the needle. I root for James Fox. I root for the people of this place that went through this event. I wonder if they can actually get their story heard. I wonder if they can get their story proven. Because if it does turn out that more can come from this case and that things can be proven from this case, not only is that documentary going to be studied a lot more, it's just going to start to get people to ask more questions. I don't know. What do you guys think? Have you seen Moment of Contact? Do you want to see Moment of Contact? Do you think that this January 20th event is going to be anything, or is it just more talk with no evidence? Put your thoughts in there. Let me know. Please subscribe to the channel. Once again, like I said, so if you don't see a video until like next Wednesday or Thursday on the channel, don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. I've been doing some work, been moving around and traveling a little bit, so I don't know if I can get to the computer and other things too. I'm going to try to do another video, but if not, I'll be back by at least Thursday of next week. So you said you're coming back. I'm coming back. It's just for next week, I might have a couple days off and then coming back on potentially Thursday. So thanks for being here. Subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on the flip side.